I'm going to show you how to check and inspect the front differential fluid. It's a similar process for front and rear and many makes and models. I have a 2008 Nissan Frontier Nismo, and I parked the vehicle on a level surface. And under the front of the vehicle, we can see the front differential housing right here, which has 2 axles that go to the front wheels into it. And then we can locate the drain hole, located at the bottom of the differential housing right there. And from the drain hole, we can then go around to the other side and locate the fill hole, which I'll point out right here, and we'll get a better camera angle of it once we remove this plate right here to get better access. There are 4 bolts holding this plate on. 1 of mine is missing, but the 3 remaining are 1/2-inch bolts, so just remove 2 of them. You can keep 1 in and simply rotate the plate out of the way once you have them removed and loosened. So we're gonna slide that out of the way, giving us access to the front differential housing. And now you can see the fill hole right there. It is a 10mm Allen key. I have a socket right here for it. And we're gonna loosen it. Remember to save the gasket that is in between. Even if you were servicing the front differential fluid and draining it immediately, you would still want to open the fill hole first just to be sure that you could fill it with fluid again. So with that plug almost all the way out, no fluid came out, so we know it might be low, although it might not be. It might be right at the correct level. So I have this piece of a hanger that I put in the hole, and I see how far the fluid is, and I can recognize by barely put the hanger in that there is fluid almost all the way up to the fill mark, indicating that the fluid level was at an acceptable level. Now I have a color graph here that roughly indicates how the new differential fluid should look. If you find it to be dark, it could be time to replace. I have found that the rear differential gets darker more than the front, although the front has much less fluid, so sometimes the level can become lower faster than the rear. And if you've been off-roading, or maybe if you have some sort of fault in your front differential system, it could be contaminated with water, in which the fluid would have a milky, grayish consistency, and you would not be able to see through it with any sort of viscosity like oil. It's much cloudier. So sometimes the fluid can look kind of grayish, but there's a difference between contaminated oil and uncontaminated oil. If it has water in it, it's time to change immediately. But again, this is how I'm checking. The fluid, you can tell, is very yellowish in hue, indicating that the fluid is still in great condition and the fluid is still at an acceptable level. So I'm just gonna plug it back up making sure the gasket is still on there, and I'm gonna tighten it down because we don't need to change this yet and we don't need to add any fluid. It's not contaminated with water and the oil is still in great condition. So I just make sure that I tighten that down good. I'm gonna change the gaskets again whenever I change the fluid, but for now, being the fill hole, it's okay to reuse the gasket and just make sure it's nice and snug and tight. So after we're certain that plug is in there tight, we're gonna start putting everything back together like that skid plate. I just wanna reiterate that the front differential oil usually has a smaller amount of fluid, so it can become low. It's important to check it every 5, 10, at least every 15,000 miles. I've had to change these in between 30 and 60,000 miles. Again, having dark fluid may not necessarily indicate a bad thing, but maybe that it's time to change. But having low fluid or no fluid could cause disaster for your front differential. So just make sure the skid plate's nice and tight. And if you found this content helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions at all, please leave a comment.